Okay, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Dover Select Board meeting on Tuesday, September 20th. And I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Do we have any public comments tonight? Linda.
I shared this with Economic Development, Eric and Shannon. I was approached by a woman from Burlington who does she works for a travel website and she does a travel blog and people looking for things to do around the town that they're on vacation or whatnot. And she happened to see that we hold an open mic. So she contacted me. I had a conversation over the phone. She's coming to Dover the next open mic, which I think is next Wednesday night, to do an interview and hopefully talk to some people that are there. So it's kind of exciting that Dover could be all over the state as far as open mic, and maybe more people will participate. So that's for all of you too.
Thank you.
Just to let you know.
Anything else? Yes.
I think the town, they did the paving, then they came and backfilled it like they did all the shoveling on the roads. I think it was great. They compacted it, they brought the material in, the big, they stole it, which, it's a big, big lift there, stole it, on, compacted it, it was great. You know, the other one, it was great, it's a big jump, right? Yeah.
Great. Thanks. I'm glad you're here.
One more thing that Livingston did the same thing. They went from the fish going with material, didn't compact it, and have rains already gone to the ghost. I think they're making look close to what we did. This one is very
Good. We won against erosion for the time being. Anything else for public comments or any agenda changes? Hearing none. We're first going to talk to Linda about errors and omissions.
Can I do it from here?
No one. Well, let's
Pull that chair over.
oh wait. Will she be on video?
Right here, I got it.
There we go. Oh, she's doing it.
Chair. Well, there we go. Double duty. Okay, so we'll do the first easy ones. Which I don't know how I listed them in what I sent, but Avanti Real Estate LLC, DN 0107 Duncan Road. I believe this is the one that some of the land may go over into Stratton. So when it's sold, there was a total of 2.9 acres. The dwelling sold with just 1 acre. So that was not caught before the final grand list was lodged. So there'll be actually 2 changes because DN 010 will, so the value prior to the sale, $416,740 with a tax amount of $8396.47. The value after the split will be $393,910 with a new tax amount of $7936.49 with a $460 difference. And then the other parcel that the sellers retain, DN 008, will be billed $489.99 for their taxes.
When did this property sell?
looks like 2019. No, that's not right. I don't have the right. 21, December of 21. So it should have been on 2022. Which it was, just with that piece incorrect.
So it was billed as if it was still combined.
Correct.
Does anybody have any questions about this era and admission? Sarah?
So am I reading this correctly that we've increased the total tax liability by $29.99?
I didn't figure it that way, but sure.
Because the parcel with the dwelling decreased by $460, but then the creation of the new lot had a which was previously untaxed as a
Correct.
separate lot is now $489.99.
$489.
Right.
Yes, yes,
So it's $29.99 different.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
In the favor of the town.
Correct.
Does anybody have any other questions about this particular parcel? Linda has asked that the board chair approve this if we do approve accepting this error as presented.
So we need to make a motion. I make a motion that the board authorizes Vicky or authorizes the chair to sign the errors and omissions for DN 010 and DN 008. Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Thank you. Tell me when you're ready.
I am ready.
Okay. Next one, SH 034 and 35. These are 15 and 19 Barber Road. Both these lots were, well, no, when Eddie had them. Anyway, it's a total of 2.04 acres. They weren't sold as combined lots. They were sold as two separate lots. So they were not combined and needed to be combined. So they got one tax bill, I believe, for just the one lot.
It says 2 tax bills were processed.
Oh, okay.
Value of combined appears to have reduced the value of the property by, I'm sure Sarah has the exact number, by about $10,000. And so the revised tax bill is going to be lower than we billed. That's 2 separate lots. You have a question?
I was just going to say the tax amount on SH 034 is listed as $1,093.43, and SH 035 at $432.77. But as a combined parcel, the tax amount is $1,310.62, which is a loss to the town of $2,015.68.
Can you say that number again?
Okay. The loss is $215.58.
Are there any questions about these 2 lots? Anybody? Hearing none. Somebody might want to make a motion.
Make a motion that the board authorize the chair to sign the errors and omissions for the 15 and 19 Barber Road properties.
Anything else? All in favor? Okay, now we have Encore Place.
So these lots, there are 7 lots. I sent the map today. I apologize for it being, it was a last minute decision to go ahead and send it because it shows the building envelope of each parcel and where the only place on these lots they could feasibly put a building. So 4 of the parcels are already developed. With 3 being 100% complete. They needed to be revalued. I had a sale. The 4 Encore place, the very first as you come in. So in looking at land values, I had a value of 287,920 to work with in creating new values for these lots. They were given at that time, they were given their own neighborhood per se. So they weren't part of all of Handle Road. The lots have been on the market for quite some time. And then along with the raise of the market, they started selling quickly. There's 1 lot left to close. So when I look to put a new value on these parcels, I looked at Sundance lots. And now that I look back at my original comp, I wasn't that far off, but I can't really use Sundance. I mean, they have pretty restricted building envelopes as well, but it's they're ski on, ski off, where Encore you have to walk across the road where you get to. So that being said, with the building envelope, taking that into consideration, and there had been a grievance in there, which that lot had been lowered somewhat. And a very irate property owner that owned 2 lots sold 1, and the value of the one that was left was higher than when the 2 lots were combined. If that makes sense. So I went back over, I looked at all the lots, I walked around and realized with this map that was a big telling point that clearly these were way overvalued. And in order to change one, I have to change them all, to be fair. So that sheet that I sent, thank you to Marco for helping me with that. That's the easiest way to tell the original value, the new value, the difference, both the tax rates and the tax difference. So the bottom line, $17,042.19. And I was clear when I said that number did not include any taxes that have been paid for like the first quarter payment or first payment.
So what does that mean? I mean, if somebody made a tax payment, so they wouldn't be late because they were presented a bill. Well, from what I'm trying to understand this. It sounds like we haven't, through our grand list, raised $17,000 that we need for this year's fiscal year. Am I wrong by saying that? Because it sounds like these properties were overvalued by almost $1 million. And we counted on that $1 million to be taxed at whatever tax rate, whether it was primary or secondary, second home. And that money was gonna come in to pay for the town budget.
Mhm.
And so we are gonna be short $17,042.
I have, Marco did give me printouts of what of these parcels had paid. I
don't think, does that matter? Does that matter in this at all? That's not a valid point.
don't know.
The point is, we overvalued these properties by so much that now we gotta find money in our budget and cut corners because we're gonna come up $17,000 short on revenue on this one little area.
Mhm.
So it's pretty scary. We just had another person who we didn't bill him for his taxes. Now he doesn't have to pay them. So it's making me feel really uncomfortable right now. I have to say, this is a pretty big error in omission, and Sundance is trailside, and these guys are across Handler Road, across parking lots, or across, it's not ski on, ski off access.
Mhm.
So
That's what
I just,
said. I did give them, I did change the neighborhood that they had originally been put in. And they are, in order to achieve the base rate, I was looking for something close, more similar, and so I do feel confident that these are where they're supposed to be.
well, clearly if they were based on Sundance as comparable, they clearly were overvalued. So I get that part, but my point being, now we're gonna have to ask department heads to cut their budgets, and we're gonna have to watch all of our spending very carefully, because this one area of an omission has now created a revenue shortfall of $17,000. Granted, we weren't, it's about our tax rate should have been higher so that we could have collected that money from everybody in town. But we didn't have the correct information so that we could set the tax rate properly. So I think that I'm kind of disappointed about this. In fact, I'm a lot disappointed.
And that's as honest a response as I could give you. It was not.
And any other board comments?
Well, how long has this neighborhood existed? It's been a decade or more, right?
Mm-hmm. And they have been undervalued quite some time.
How are they?
Yeah, so now they haven't been paying their fair taxes. Now we've overtaxed them. Now we're gonna take them down. It seems just like we're chasing our tails on this, and it's pretty
It
concerning.
gets like that sometimes. Mhm.
Question,
Yes,
when was valuation done? To raise it,
As of April 1st. 2022 grand list.
because of a grievance.
yeah,
No,
So they
They're
revalue
down because of the grievance.
yes,
just
but they
that-
grieved when they went up. So do you have the value of what they were in 2021? I don't want to know.
yeah,
most of these had been revalued as 2010, which was our last reappraisal.
So,
You want
In
me
the-
to, I have them, if
You
you want to
don't.
hear them.
yeah, well, so, okay, so just give us a couple of them.
2010, all right, this is the one,
Just give us a parcel number.
TR022A, and I'm only gonna give you the land value, does that make sense, or you want the whole thing?
I want to know
The
what this,
comparable to these numbers, whatever.
287,920.
so that one only went up.
Wait a minute, that's 22A.
And that's a
You said
hard
the
one
tax
because
or
it's
the
a it's a developed parcel, so it has a driveway, it
So
has.
can you give us
Can you
then what
give
the
us
raw
one?
land ones are?
I'll
That'll probably be
yeah,
better.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, TR 022B, last value on that was 2019, 250,000.
Okay, so no, wait, now I'm really confused. So that particular parcel was 250,000. You then raised it to 313,400. And now we're gonna take it down to 162,000?
Okay, let me comment on that one. That's the one that was, they owned 2 parcels. So this value in 2019 was for 2 parcels.
Okay, can you give us an apples to apples so that we can look at the,
We need to see what's happened.
because this is you're giving us information that isn't pure, that we can look at this chart and say, okay, here's an unbuilt, you know, a lot that was not touched or.
Undeveloped by
Yeah.
itself.
I don't have everything. I don't have,
Are there any single lots that are currently undeveloped and so therefore were undeveloped in 2010 as well?
Undeveloped lots would be TR 022 F and G, I would assume.
F is developed with a house.
Was it developed in 2010?
Well, my last valuation date was 14 at 190.80.
And was that
So
where the house
that
was
was
out?
developed, the house went up in. I guess it was started by then, because there's a building value. The other parcel. 22G,
Mhm.
190
It was 190 in,
in 08 is the last date I have on that.
So you had them higher than what you put them at now. According to this, it's at 157.
Right,
So
You
it was
said
higher,
okay, now you,
then you brought it up to 304, and now you're taking it down below 190 to 157?
I can do them. I mean, if you look at, the thing you gotta look at too is what they sold for. So that one sold for 170. I can't really go to 190. 22E. Sold for 150, and these are all within the last. That was April of 21, sold for 150, and currently. I'm at 209.
so
no, it says you're at
800.
231.
That's the total. There's a 21,550 foundation value there. Did I put that in wrong?
Did you send this to us on?
Yeah.
I don't. Why did I?
There were 3 separate
Actually, I have 2
emails.
copies of it.
Joe, there were 3 separate emails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one is that? Did I just say? That was E. Okay, right, so. I did give the total value on that one. So the land value would just be the 209.8. And some of these parcels, the other piece is, like this particular one is 1.22 acres. Some of the others, the one I gave you that sold with the house on it is only like 0.42 acres. So it's a mishmash in there, so you can't value them all the same.
I don't think anybody's saying you should.
No, I'm just making that comment. That's why I was looking for a base rate that would adequately pick up the acreage on these lots. 22D. 1.35 acres, sold for 126,876. Now, when I went to the 300 plus on these. I've always been under the understanding that if you're in a subdivision, you don't use the other parcels for your comparables, because they're not considered valid sales. So that's why I went looking for valid sales. It's too old. Did I give them all to you? 130, 22C is, just want to see what I put on here, if I gave you the total value. Yeah, that's the total also. 1.14 acres, that sold for 139. And I did give you the total value because that one has a house on it. That is,
So just going back to your, when you do an analysis, the state tells you not to use what a lot sells for in that neighborhood. To value the other lots. I
no.
just don't see how that doesn't
Makes
make
sense.
logical sense.
Wait, can you repeat that? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time following.
Okay, the map. If
Yeah.
this lot here sells here, for, I'm just gonna give you, for instance, 100,000, okay? Then these lots on either side, as long as they're comparable size, I would think would sell for 100,000, unless all of a sudden some changes in the market. But you're telling me that you can't value, if this lot sells, what, my understanding, talking to you, the state doesn't allow you to use the other lots, this lot to value the other lots within that neighborhood, the
That-
sales?
That's what I was understanding, however,
Okay, so that's not correct. Your understanding was not correct.
was
on that.
not correct.
Okay, because just hear me out, Linda. It makes logical sense. Whatever sells in the neighborhood, someone's not gonna buy twice as much of that land next year, for twice as much. So I'm not, that was, so what you were saying, you were under a misunderstanding that you were supposed to go outside the neighborhood to find out what other sales. That doesn't, just in my opinion, just listening to it, it doesn't make any logic.
Well, a
So,
subdivision, when
I wish you
do
could've
a lot sale,
not done it.
subdivision, it's not a valid sale.
Well, that's stupid.
Well.
I'll
tell
go
that
to the
the
state and
governor.
I'll tell that straight to the governor, he stands here in front of me and everybody up at the state.
A
The
subdivision,
first lot that sells in a subdivision up at Sundance, you can track the sales of Sundance up at the Sundance base lot, or at the Sundance thing. Whatever that lot sold for, whatever the first one, because it was COVID, they probably went up real quick. And that was a trend because everyone had to get the land, okay, which makes sense, it'll trend up. But in a regular market, you're not gonna pay twice as much, it's not gonna, unless something in our market forces, which we had a crazy COVID thing, was a market force.
which has made all of that, Sundance and this, really nuts.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, we
that's
just
the
try to
honest.
do, with all this said, I vote that we accept the errors and omission, but please try to do a better job. So I would move to accept it as read and we'll move on, but we need to do a better job so that we're not in this position as we sit for the next rest of the year. Someone want to second it?
I second it.
Any other comments?
Just that it would be good to know going forward what specific steps can be taken so we don't encounter a problem this large again. I can understand, some of the smaller ones, if, a subdivision happened or, a lot split and you maybe weren't informed right away or the paperwork didn't go through, but this is a lot of money. And so it's, the question is what specifically can be done so we aren't faced with this kind of shortfall again? Because it's gonna hurt every department in the town.
Dan?
So this has something similar to what you talked about, like with the Eddie Barber thing with the food lots. So my wife and I bought the garage across the street and it became part of our combined thing. And I was, to my understanding, that's what the state requires that you do. So the Eddie Barber thing didn't do that, evidently. We never did it, or
It was owned by, one lot was owned by the son and the daughter. The other one was.
so then it was probated. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Everybody ready to vote? All in favor? Aye. There you go. All right, the next item, if I can get back to my agenda here. No, we have to update on the assistant position responses. From Linda.
There were two, and that's all I have to say about that.
There were two or there are two?
There are two,
Okay,
Two,
and
and
from what I understand, we're not ready to move
we're, right,
forward.
we're waiting on,
A
Your
coordination
side.
with my liaison, with
right,
my
because
department.
it's two different departments, so.
Mhm.
So we vent out if those two are at all,
right,
whatever or not.
Right.
It's not doing anything because of all the security and.
So
blah,
I
blah,
should,
blah.
as liaison, I should speak to my department head about that.
That'd be
I
awesome.
think
I can do
that's a
that.
great idea.
Whenever we're ready, we take care of our side.
Okey-dokey.
Thanks.
Okay. Next, Eric, why don't you find yourself a, thank you. Police Department, Randy. We're gonna discuss an update on the hiring policy.
Yeah, so actually, we don't have a policy. I'm just informing you that what we have for an application says that you gotta be, and something else just came up within yesterday afternoon and this morning, but anyway, that our current application says 21 or over, and this just came up, a US citizen. Due to, we're not getting applicants. We've had some, and we've had to phase them out for one reason or another, not because of age or anything. So what I've done, talking with my sergeant and staff, and since we don't have a policy, is we've now opened it up to 18-year-olds. And plus that, and as far as US citizens, as long as you are able to prove that you can work legally in the US, that we will take that application as well. So I can go into a lot more if you want. In short, out of the 46 departments, this is Sergeant Robert Gaston with research for me. Out of 46 departments that are currently posting an officer at the Academy website, the minimum age requirements break down as 32 agencies are 18 or over, 1 19 or over, 4 20 and over, 9 21 and over. Dover is 1 of 9. And from my understanding, we're 1 of 4 in southern Vermont. That is part of that 9. So there's a lot of agencies that go with 18-year-olds as well. So as at this point, I'm just informing you that just because we're having an issue with applicants and doing some research, that we're now accepting 18-year-olds, and also you don't have to be a US citizen as long as you can prove that you can legally work in the US with a green card.
And of course, pass all the same background checks as everybody else.
Absolutely, yeah, and just because you're 18, I mean, yeah, you still got to go through everything. I mean, I've got a lot of notes if you want to get into it, got questions, but other than that, that's the short version of it. So.
And I've already.
I don't have an issue with it. I think it gives you an opportunity to grab some kids that are interested, young adults who might become, you can start training and they might find a good career opportunity. And personally, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, they're all gonna have to go through the same background.
Yeah, fortunately that they're not out there waiting for 2 years where they can pick up bad habits.
Any other comments from the board?
It's a good move, especially for like one of the, few in southern Vermont.
I think we have to be competitive.
Yeah.
Dan,
Wasn't Bobby less than 21 when he?
So Bobby was hired when he was 18 and he was chief when he was 22.
I think you lied about the age too.
He was 15.
so there you Good luck.
Just updating you
I
on
hope
that.
he gets more applicants. Thank you. Next, we have the highway. This is the mystery thing on the agenda. Discuss potential large equipment purchase. What is this all about?
So I'm seeking the board permission to look into possibly purchasing to replace our rubber tired excavator that we have in the budget for this upcoming year. Remember, I had pushed it back a year to research possibly fixing ours up and getting it up to par and or versus the price of the new. Well, in doing so, I came across a used new machine that's available now.
What does that mean? What's used new mean?
A town traded a machine back in with 500 hours on it. That's a 2018 equivalent to.
So it's
Very close
like,
equivalent.
it's like a demo.
Yeah, so the town bought it and then they traded it in.
Right.
That would be next time over. So.
So
So,
I'm pulling out the capital equipment.
right,
Here comes.
Keep talking.
okay. I can give you some numbers here.
So, yeah,
I can, my idea was just to see if you guys wanted to pursue this. Me,
I just
bring you some
want to,
hardcore numbers
thank you.
next time. I'm not
Okay.
looking
Do you
to
have-
purchase anything tonight.
did you put a deposit so it's held until we decide?
That,
or-
see, that's the thing.
Problem. correct?
What we can do to get around that, I talked with the salesman, he said we can do. Caterpillar will do a lease. We make the payment and then without any penalties. If we budgeted for the remainder, we could pay it off in July.
Wow, that's pretty
So-
crafty of them,
Yeah, so that.
pretty amazing.
Okay, so-
That gets us the machine now with one small payment. If
So what's
we
the
decide,
price tag on this?
okay,
Where is it budgeted at? and all
Well,
Well, we have 240 in the capital equipment budget.
right, which. To get a new machine, 2024 machine. You would need to budget 260,000.
Today.
I would have to, this fall, if I don't get. I'm gonna ask you for
Okay,
260, okay?
okay,
This 2018 machine with less than 500 hours on it. With our trade, we can have it for 170,000. It still has the remainder of the 7-year,
Warranty.
3,500 hour warranty.
Yeah.
From the factory.
do you know why they traded this
Yes.
particular machine in?
Yes. They have an older crew of guys. That do not like to run wheeled excavators. It takes a certain kind of person. To be able
I
to
don't,
accept the machine. Tipping up and rocking and they're not as stable as a
so
tractor.
how do they dig their ditches?
They're
Using a tractor?
using their backhoe,
Oh, boy, okay.
yeah.
So this,
Currently,
this
but they
has,
traded this wheel machine in for a track machine.
Yeah, they use a
Small,
rubber track.
so it wasn't being used, so they got rid of it.
yes.
Your guys, I know you're a genius on this type of machine, but are the rest of the guys
We already have.
as able?
We already have, I
Already
have run it once and Chris has spent a lot of time in it, this particular machine.
We're just
So-
upgrading ours to
So-
a newer machine.
Yeah, for
A lot
a
less
machine
stuff.
that's right down the road.
So give us the financing deal again.
I'd have to talk more in depth from Caterpillar, but I talked to the salesman today and he said that we can do a lease with, say, a 10-year term or whatever have you, and make a one-time payment that's due at signing. And then we can pay it off. We budget for whatever the remainder is and we can pay it off in July.
Right, so for the next fiscal
Without
year,
any
so it doesn't
penalties.
mess, it doesn't mess with our budget when we already have a messed up.
Well,
budget.
it does because we have to make a payment for the
Right, but I
lease.
don't-
Right, but it's,
Mhm.
It's still.
Sarah,
There's 3 am I reading this right? 3 items in the
For this
capital
year.
equipment for this year, are those all gonna happen?
Yes, those are happening.
They are,
Yes.
okay.
And how about our trade-ins for what we have done? Are they on? Have we done well? Have we
We have yet to sell outright our trucks that we
decided to sell outright?
decided to sell outright, yes.
Okay, I got a lot of questions. Scott, did you have one?
Did I miss the lease number? Did he give you a lease number?
He didn't.
So
No,
this is
but
what happened.
from
Gotcha.
just verbally, it was anywhere between from 30 to 18,000. Like
So-
it was, depending on the term,
that we'd have to come up with for this upcoming year before we can pay off all
yeah.
Jim?
I'm curious as to how much value is of the trade-in to determine what we are actually paying for this.
Did he give you the trade-in value?
Of our machine?
Yes,
Yes, he did. 45,000.
we had budgeted 60. So that was our trade-in budget was
That-
60.
It's on a 15-year-old, 14-year-old
But we
machine
were gonna, will we use that?
with also, with close to 4,000 hours.
out. We've also been stretching it out,
Yeah,
This
So-
is,
we pushed it next year.
that was the straight price. And then we're
Okay.
so we had basically set up 180,000 to purchase this after the trade. So this would be
10.
Hmm?
We say 10, because of 170 after the trade.
170. 170.
Yeah,
Should Travis pursue this any further and get hard numbers for us?
Yes.
absolutely.
yeah. We still won't save 10, we would save like 70, right? 67,000.
Well, who knows what this 240,000 wheeled excavator really might cost in 2024 or.
Right,
What he's saying
that's
is right.
over 300,000. To buy, to replace what? To replace currently what we have with the identical machine. In 2024, it's gonna be over $300,000. You're gonna pay more for this wheel excavator than we just bought brand per year for.
Well, that's making us feel really good. Thank you.
I'm just saying, it's
Think
a
we're
lot.
getting
That's
a little
why
expensive here tonight.
I know, and
But-
that's
but-
why I came to you with this, because I think this is a good. I think this is a good,
No, and we appreciate that, but also as we gonna go into another cycle of budgeting. We really need to, from you and from the fire department and the police department, to really get solid budgets, because we have had a large increase. It's not like it's gonna go down.
right,
So we gotta readjust all that, so we collect enough into our capital budget. Going forward, so this happened to come up, and we appreciate you coming to us. It's just whether or not we can
right, no,
make the taxpayers at the end of the year not yell at us.
yeah,
Or if you have to take money out of.
But it's also, it could, if, I'd like to see the hard numbers.
okay.
I have faith in Travis in Hagel.
But- I think that if we can see the hard numbers, we can make a better, we can make a decision to make sure that, one, it is a 5-year-old machine now. It only has 500 hours. It doesn't have, and you said it was a 10-year warranty or an 8?
7-year, 3,500 hours.
So the hours are great, but we only have a couple years left on the warranty.
Right.
So we have to take all those things into account. So it's an interesting idea. Obviously, wasn't set up for this year, and so we'll have to be.
This machine also has some extra options. It comes with a mower head.
uh,
So if our roadside mower breaks down,
We can use
this is also available for that purpose too.
Right, so you got some.
Just,
Yeah, and is that roadside mower gonna be a new one of those in a capital? No, there's been a lot of problems with it.
Yep.
So put it together. Be as tough as you can be and try to get the best price for us, and we'll see.
Okay.
We can't.
right, no.
We'll
I just
see.
wanted to- That's, I just want
But-
your permission, otherwise I can just say, hey, we're not gonna, but. Appreciate it.
Just let the salesman know, so you're not doing all this, just make sure he'll hold it until 2 weeks.
Oh, if he knows.
Yeah, just
I'll
give him,
contact
I
him.
just hate to see you do all the numbers and we say, yeah, and then, oh, sorry, we sold it to another town. Cause it's gonna get
He's
out
not gonna.
after this, the
Right.
paper's gonna,
Travis.
all the other towns will read about it.
He'll want to sell Travis more machines in the future, I'm sure.
We're going back on next year.
So, do what you can do. Get us all the hard information and bring it right back to us. Okay, and we'll try to think
Thank you,
that, put our
Travis.
thinking caps on too.
Yep.
Thank you, Travis. And the next thing is the highway access permit clarification for Clinton Bond Trail. That's you.
Yes.
So, yeah, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Tom Concanon,
I'm Ravi, thank you.
and we co-own 19A White Hill Road.
Mhm.
We applied for an access to the to build a cabin. We put the frame up. We got the approval for the build last year. And this spring, we put the frame up. In the process of setting that up, we negotiated that we would have access from Clinton Bond to deliver the materials. But it was my misunderstanding that the excavator, when we set that up, did not need to cut a massive, it's not massive, but a driveway. It did not need to cut a driveway to get down there. He was gonna small equipment and so on. He ended up cutting a driveway. Once that happened, I got a call from Travis and, put on the town, they saw it right away and we decided to apply for access from Clinton Bond.
Who did you negotiate about access from Clinton Bond Trail with? With Travis?
No, we spoke at this meeting by Zoom from Boston.
Oh, okay,
About that.
okay. So the trail has been excavated. The trail, the driveway is there now.
The driveway is there, yeah. We removed rock wall to get access to them. And there's a driveway down to the 75 feet.
Does anybody else have anything else to say about this?
We have the email from Andy contacted the
So,
resident.
Yes.
Chair. So Scott had reached out to me after the last meeting and asked me to get in touch with the other folks who own the camp on Clinton Bond Trail, the Baileys. Scott and Byron, which I did, and they said, gosh, they're fine with these guys accessing their property off of Clinton Bond Trail for the camp. They had two concerns. One was that the Clinton Bond Trail, they're fine with it being maintained in its current condition. They're concerned about it being upgraded so that it looks more inviting to people with four-wheel drives. Their camp has been broken into, and they don't want to see more traffic up there than they need to. It's a lonely section of trail. There's no electricity or anything up there. Nobody lives up there. So they're just concerned that that the trail was upgraded a little bit and looks a little nicer. Like you don't need it. It's easier to get up there than afraid of the traffic. That's one concern. The second concern was they really don't want to see it plowed in the winter, for winter time access. I spoke with Byron and he said Scott was in agreement with him. They're the owners. But they're more than happy to have these folks access their property otherwise. And I might just add that, I spoke with these folks when they bought the property. I understand that they also bought a property in Newfane they're working on, and I'm sure that, things fall through the cracks. I can see myself, forgetting or not being up on the fact that they needed to come to you. And I think that if they leave with the understanding that this is very important to the town, how this trail is maintained, and that they need to talk to Travis before they do anything on the trail. I really have no problem or can't see a problem with them accessing their property through the trail. And I use the trail.
And not plowing the trail. Sarah.
Is there no access off of White's Road or is the access just difficult?
There is no access currently, but we've applied for access, and I think that's the second part of the question, I think, that we've applied for access to build a road from White's Hill,
A driveway, you mean?
a driveway, yeah.
Okay.
Plus it's a road.
So you have an application in with,
It's in, so
Yeah.
I'm good with it. We've talked.
so if we give you continued access through Clinton Bond, are you gonna give up the White's Hill or are you gonna do both?
Well, we're gonna do both. There's a reason for that. We are planning longer term to build a dwelling, a house, not a camp. But closer into the road by 400 feet. The camp is 700 feet. We're gonna try to build a home approximately 400 feet closer to White's Hill. And for that, we want a driveway. And we just intend to build that driveway over time slowly, and then before we, I think it'll be 2, 3 or more years before we come to the town to ask about building a house there.
Sarah?
So when that house is constructed, you will then be using the White's Road access exclusively or almost exclusively?
Almost exclusively.
Okay, so you're not at any point in time anticipating improving the trail or asking for wintertime maintenance on it?
Not at all. In fact, I want to just clarify on the improvements that you may have seen. We did not, there's what we call a discouragement section on the road, like the first 100 feet, it's not acceptable by a car, I tried. We are leaving, I mean, we like that as well, and we've talked to Byron and Scott, and totally in agreement about that. We don't want that to be an encouragement section. So what I did ask the excavator to do, because they brought heavy equipment down and left ruts, is to just grade that again where they left them, but that's closer up to the cabin. Is that what you meant by the improvement?
Yeah, I believe they added some materials, and Travis can correct me if I'm wrong, to that front part, when you just turn off of White's Hill Road as well. It's different than it was before they started. But in any case, I think that, I don't want to speak for Travis, but just as long as you understand, before anything happens, Travis needs to.
I'm not aware, I was not aware of that. Was there in fact new material on that?
Yeah, there was some, but like it was small. Right at the end, but down by the culvert at the end, but yeah, I had gone up in and saw where they had made the ruts and drained the water holes, so we graded up what. Yeah.
So Travis usually approves these. Is this more just of letting the board know about everything that's gone on with this, or what? Thanks, Andy.
Yep, so this is different than a normal access.
To stop the
permit,
trail.
because it's on the trail, there's an ordinance, you guys need to approve it. If you made a motion to allow these folks to access their property off of Clinton Bond Trail with the conditions that it not be plowed and that they don't perform any maintenance without Travis's permission, and said that would suffice to give them permission.
Any other questions? Does somebody want to make a motion?
So I make a motion to permit access to 19A White's Hill Road via Clinton Bond Trail, subject to the conditions that no road maintenance or improvements will be done without discussion with the road commissioner first, and that the road not be maintained or plowed in winter.
So second it.
Or
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Here's the original permit. I had a question. Have you ordered the windows for the town hall?
I have not. I've gotten prices. And I wanted to talk to you guys about it.
Whoa. All right, so get prices and let us, bring that to us too, please,
Okay,
because things are not getting cheaper, so.
yeah.
And if that is
I
a
wanted to ask you
dire
guys, too,
situation.
Do you wanna do all the windows all the way around? Or
mean
do
like
you
all
just
kitchen-
wanna do the large ones in the large room?
Looking for your recommendation.
They were all done at the same time.
Yeah, but the big ones are more stressful, the sashes and they're
Right.
just getting,
The other ones that surround the kitchen, there's one or two that are newer when you guys must have remodeled the kitchen.
Mhm.
But to do all of them all the way around, I've gotten prices to do all of them. I can go back and get prices to do just the large ones, whatever you guys prefer.
I'm just really concerned based on the condition. That
Yes.
some of those, somebody's gonna open a window and that whole pane is gonna come flying out, they're gonna get hurt. There's gonna be broken glass, and then we've got a big hole in the wall. So we really need to button up those windows because it's a dangerous situation. I really believe that. So please bring that to us. And I know there's gonna be a lead time because these are all custom.
Oh, yes, yes.
So
I have another question. The stump, you want me to have somebody just come grind it?
did you get us a quote?
Do you want quotes?
Yeah.
They're looking like around $1,500 to $1,600, but you want me to bring you quotes, I can,
As-
or I can just have it done. Because
You wanna make a motion?
1,500 is not
Up to
5,000 in our purchase amount. So
Yeah.
whatever you want to do.
we didn't have an idea how much it really was gonna
Okay.
be, so
Yeah.
now you've given us that
Yeah.
information.
Yep, I've asked like 3 or 4 different people, and they've all given me the rough,
Right.
same rough.
So get
Right.
something in writing,
Okay.
take your best offer of doing a good job
Get it
and
done.
get it done.
Yeah.
Because
You're
it's
fine.
gonna turn into
Yep.
another
Yep.
hazard, so. So,
But thank you to come, let's get it done.
Remove the old wood and put
Yeah.
loam over it, and it'd be grass.
right, and plan for next year's budget we're budgeting this winter coming, November, December, to add planting of trees at the common.
Okay.
Because we want to have that in some kind of cap for some shade.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool,
Thank you.
okay,
all right.
thank you.
Okay, next we have unfinished business. We're gonna discuss the interim parking lot at Handle Road project. So. Where to begin? Let me find my stuff. So Joe, you're our liaison.
Great.
And I know you're in favor of getting the temporary or interim parking lot established. I see it as a real safety issue.
Right.
And I don't think the Forest Service is gonna stop us. And so,
No, our correspondence with the Forest Service is not that they're gonna say it's okay to do it, but they're not gonna say it's not okay to do it. They're gonna be Switzerland with it, if I can make that in the easiest terms. So, but with all the, the recommendations from our different departments for access, for search and rescue, and for, the fact that we are gonna be doing this stuff out there, it does not make sense to be parking on the side of the road. That we have approval from the previous owner next door, Jacob Brown, to do that path. We're good with the utilities, we're good with everything else, we've gone through everything, we have our easements, everything's in place. And it's, I think the best
so
method for now.
we have letters from
Mhm.
our police chief,
Mhm.
the search and rescue coordinator, our insurance loss casualty people, and that's a big thing for us, because if there's an accident on Handle Road and we created it by putting resources up on that bridge, that's on us. So, oh, Travis, you're still here.
Yep.
So is this something you could be able to accomplish this fall? How would we limit access to this lot?
There's. We can we can come up with a solution to that, but, you know, if we decide not to plow it this winter, we just don't plow it, then there's no access to it. But really during the winter months, in my opinion of talking to different parties, there's no reason why we couldn't have parking there. It does no damage to it. The only time that we want to shut it down is come springtime. And not allow people to park there. So could we manage it and so people can start enjoying that section of it? I believe so. So that would be something from different recommendations as we move forward with our RFP. Hopefully we get that going with our trail. You know, RFP out there to get someone out there to put the trails, you know, our plan together.
So would we be constructing, sorry, I'll get to you, Tim, just a second. The south side or the north side of the parking lot?
Yeah, so if you look,
The Jacob Brown side is to the right. And then, no, that's wrong.
you can see it up on the map right there.
Yeah,
We'd be doing
Oh,
the
there
one
we
that has the trees
right,
for the left, the pink.
yeah, so that's,
The outline in the bank, those
Okay.
4 spots.
so it would be the south side of,
Yeah.
of the,
Yes.
okay,
That's it.
Tim.
From a safety perspective, I think there is a good reason to have that parking there as, you know, we move forward in this project. I think that's certainly a very viable reason to have that parking. I'd say from the Southern Vermont Trail Association perspective, is we want to limit and just mitigate as much advertisement at this time before the project's completed, just for the same safety elements on that unmaintained section in the Forest Service, but we think that that's a good safety precaution.
And I would just add that the project just north of Dover that we're doing right now is basically in Dover, right north of the Woodford Tree.
Mhm.
That's the north entrance. It's a nightmare that we're doing a project, it's not a nightmare, but it's not ideal that we're doing a project before having a parking lot. Because we're going over a little bit of culvert and just going into the woods with a machine. And then when we do our volunteer days as well, you know, they're parking down the street across the road, bringing them in, so we're certainly in favor of it.
Yes, alternative parking, but there's not a lot of very viable alternative parking that creates an easy access when we do get to that maintenance and construction phase.
Mhm.
And so what's proposed for the small section of the parking lot, on the, what looks to be the south side, I think is a good start.
And I'm glad that we're in agreement, because I do think that the day that we did our site visit, that was pretty, with 2 vehicles that both had flashing lights, it still wasn't a good scenario. So this allows further research, all the ologists in there with a safe place to park, get off the road and everything else to move forward. I think it is a first step, and I would be in favor of doing it this fall. Any other comments?
Just like to clarify, keeping it as discreet. I think
Yeah.
unplowed in the winter, and then in the spring, we can figure out what that looks like, but just try and keep it.
You don't want the 10x20 sign?
Yeah, we definitely do want it, but not.
If you can get it roughed in, if you get the rough rate, just get it roughed in, place the park. When the job starts, get situated up there, but I've been down that road, I don't see personal from people, I mean, like 50 times I've driven down the road and people come out of the woods there because it's just the pandemic. People have been lost, and even know like where the road they're coming out, like I don't see it, like I could be wrong, but I could see a camper park, they're giving passed on that.
Tabby.
That way, I just don't see that. Get a rough in
Well, you just said a magic word, camper, and depending on how under the radar we want this while it's being built out, do we put a small sign like we have at parts of the Valley Trail, no overnight camping? Because
Plow it, and then come spring, we're probably gonna figure out some way to monitor who's gonna be going in there. Maybe we gate it, or we put some chains up and have keys and they stop in here. I mean, there's ways to get around it.
Yeah.
We have
Come spring, we hope that there is the contractor in there.
Yeah.
So we'll have a vehicle that's already in there anyway.
Exactly.
Right, but so-
Good stuff.
But if we don't plow it, then a camper's not probably gonna be there. And if it is, then we'll deal with it at that point, I think. Who had their hand up?
No, I was just saying,
Oh.
he'll deal with it.
So, all right, so do we want to make a motion to put the interim parking lot in on off Handle Road this fall
So
with the funds coming from economic development.
we've already earmarked
Right,
years ago.
right.
Second it. You moved it.
Mhm. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Next, we're gonna get an update from one of my favorite topics, the well project on the town common. PFAS ahoy.
I was hoping to have more of an update, but I did not hear back from Cass. Either yesterday or today. I was hoping to have more information, but they are working on an RFP package for the well drilling contractors. So I was hoping to have a copy of that for you to review, but it's still in the works. We're also working on a financial assistance application that the state has provided, so we're hoping to get some additional funding for this.
We haven't had an update on the neighboring wells. And the monitoring of those, because that was a big piece of it that pushed us off from spring to fall now.
Yes, I know he did relate to Stephen McCass. Related that it was the Bartlett well and the Lanker well, I believe it is. The Bartlett well is still non-detect. The Lanker well, I believe, does have a very slight detection. So they will continue to monitor this.
And everybody knows the feds just reduced their tolerance level of PFAS in water systems. So this is, I hope we come up with a solution that we can. It's a solution, a real solution, not an interim solution, because the number keeps going down and down. It's at a tolerable level. Yes, Eric.
The latest update I had heard was that the feds have dropped the number to a tolerance that they're not even capable of measuring at the moment, so it is dropping.
Yeah, yeah. And so the state will drop as well, I'm sure.
We gotta be.
Okay, so well, keep us.
So, yeah, hopefully by the next meeting, I'll have something more definite in place.
Yeah, just
Great.
a side note, not that I wanna know. How much money have we already spent on this testing? And number two, how much of that are we finding? I know, but how much of that are we ultimately gonna maybe get back?
So that is something though, as we should try to get a file started with that has overall costs, because at some point, hopefully we can get some money back for all of this. So, but we should, if you just keep going forward, in particular, all the receipts, just make a copy and stick it in there, because it's really important to have that number. Yeah.
Especially if we plan on using ARPA dollars, because the reporting for that is meticulous, so we would need to know.
Well, I thought we didn't have to do the meticulous thing for ARPA.
Well, they still want to know, like, whatever we do spend it on, they're gonna want to know what it was spent on. We can't
Right,
just-
and just,
I can give you the whole.
yeah,
Holes in the ground.
yeah. Thank you, Jeanette.
Thanks.
Next, we have economic development. Now we're gonna clarify Forest Hill roles and responsibilities.
Okay, so I think to start, you guys, so we have Tim and Tom, president, vice president of yeah, here with us tonight, hoping that you guys can start, give us a general idea of what it is that your thoughts are about what your roles are with Forest Hill and other partners as we.
Thank you, Art. Not gonna be as exciting as the last agenda. First of all, thanks for having us here. And really what we just want to accomplish tonight is the two properties that we partnered with the town. It went through some history here because it predates me, it actually predates Eric to a degree. For the past 5 years, Dover Town Forest and Forest Hill. Okay, just wanted to give a brief description of kind of what's happened there and talk about what we could offer going forward. And then ultimately it's up to the select board on, what you would like to have us perform in the future. So real quickly, just a little brief history.
I'm sorry, did you just say Dovertown Forest?
Correct.
Because we didn't warn that on the agenda. We just
So it's
warned.
really just, it's connected.
Okay, I just wanted,
yeah,
just to
it's
be
kind of the same thing.
bureaucratic about it.
If that's okay.
Yeah, I think you're trying, are you trying to just give us the kind of what was going on?
Yeah,
Full
and then
understanding of
Uh-huh.
all the projects.
And then just go forward, because it really is the same thing. It's what would you like us to do and, on your property or not? Okay. So anyway, so 2017 was the first year of the Dover Town Parks. It was not open to the public at the time, and 600 volunteer hours created the Rock and Roller Trail, cleared up to Chutes and Ladder Zone, and the Chutes and Ladder Upper Zone, which is a graded ski area, was cleared by hand. In 2018, there's 900 volunteer hours. That was the first year open to the public, okay, for backcountry skiing. And the Chutes and Ladders Upper and Lower Zone were cleared with pole saws. We had permission at that time to use a pole saw with motor, okay? And the Chutes and Ladders Skin Track open, which was kind of the first major zone. Trail mat kiosks with ELM and 250 blazes to mark the trails were installed. And apparently there was funding from the town at that time. That predates me. 2019, that was COVID. There were a lot of bored people. So we had 2,000 volunteer hours that year. A lot of people out in the woods getting things done. And the Three Bridges Snowshoe Trail was added at the request of abutting landowners. An overlook loop cleared and open to the public. Three Blind Mice Ski Zone cleared and open to the public. Baby Town Frolic Zone cleared and open to the public. Grandma's Chicken Little open to the public and zones cleared. 3 new winter use trails connected those zones. Then there was the ongoing maintenance from the past 2 years that we had to contend with at that point. Also 2 new trail kiosks and all new trail maps. That year, 750 additional blazes were installed. Parking lot expansion request at that time, economic development. Adjacent landowners were starting to get annoyed with the cars going down the road on the snowier days. And again, it was really the main attraction was all back to Christine. Slow signs were also requested on rights of the landowner. That was in 2020, 1,000 volunteer hours. We milled wood, installed 4 bridges on 3 Bridges Trail. Sorry, we installed the bridges on a 3 Bridges Trail, not 4 bridges. Chutes and Ladder upper skin track was cleared, danger zone and skin track work begun. Additional user safety signage installed, new blazes for skin track installed. Ongoing zone and metro trail maintenance. This last year, 600 volunteer hours. Danger zone and skin track complete and open to the public. New blazes installed, new trail maps and kiosks. Ongoing zone and winter maintenance. For Dover Town Parks, also just want to point out that there is a book that is called Best Backcountry Skiing in New England. And it's kind of considered the Bible. And there's only been 1 revision in the history of it. This is by the Appalachian Mountain Club. And Dover is now immortalized in this book. And that also had a reason. I can pass this around if you want to see, but there's a nice description with the map that has, Dover in a book that describes the Adirondacks, the Mount Mansfield region, as well as, Tucker.
Nice.
So that is the Dover Town Parks. Forest Hill was a smaller project that began in 2019. Trail and backcountry zones. It consists of a lower loop, a skin track to the top for the backcountry ski zone, a snowshoe loop. And there are 5 small backcountry zones in there, and that was 500 volunteer hours. Okay. So moving on, what do we provide as an organization, which is very similar to any trail organization that's a chapter of CTA or them throughout the state. And it's 35 years of trail experience through our parent organizations. We draw on their wisdom and their knowledge. Experience working with state and federal agencies. We do have permitting knowledge. We can assist or lead in project concepting, planning, and execution or any part of that. And then really a big part is the ongoing trail maintenance. Okay, programming and education around trails and recreation. We do a few projects going on with the Dover School right now. Volunteer work through trail days. That's where we get a lot of bang for our buck, and our partners get a lot of bang for our buck because we it's mainly volunteer work, if not more. It's also very important that I want to point out, and again, this is my understanding, this is not my day job, so forgive me, but through our organization, we have a seat on the Greenway Council. Okay. So the Greenway Council is there, one of the requirements to get around Act 250 under Rule 71, okay, is to have a seat on the Greenway Council. So it's a requirement for the jurisdictional approval to be given as long as we disturb under 10 acres, 9.9 acres, we do not trigger an Act 250. So currently, our name as well as the town of Dover are on the permit for the Dover Town Forest, so that we, for the parking lot, possible for the memorial, and there's some ideas floating around there through economic development about some correct term. Pavilions, okay, so that's important to that jurisdiction opinion that we both share right now, as well as in Forest Hill for the trails and disc golf. Now, also want to point out that disc golf being classified as a trail amenity, this is a first of its kind in Vermont. It was unexpected that that would be approved. There's no legal precedent for it, and it was made possible through our executive director, Steve Patrick, working through VEMA, as well as utilizing a relationship with A&R. So we thought that was pretty cool. So that being said, you know, what do we want? You know, we want to act upon our mission, and you know, and expand the opportunities, and that's really it. So all we really need is for our parent organizations, us to carry the insurance where we name the town as an additional insurer, and to also utilize our Greenway Council. We need signed landowners. So the state, and we don't have those in place right now. So the state dictates that they're 10-year landowner agreements. We do have, you know, copies. We had one close with the previous economic director, but I do have the emails that it did go before this board. And I think there was a typo, or I have to bring up the history for you. But that's really our ask. I don't want to field any questions, because without that, we can't keep our name on the permits and have a relationship with more.
Like that one thing on the landowner agreements is generally landowner agreements that we provide are the same landowner agreements we'll provide with anyone that we partner with. What does that give us permission to do? Basically, that gives us permission to maintain the trails that we help host and sponsor and advocate for. And that is it. That's usually the only thing that it states for just the open ability to go ahead and do work without asking any other permission. It also states in our document that anytime that there's any trail addition, closure, or if you need to do any kind of major reroute, where we might have to bring the trail and go through dirt to get around a large tree that fell, that all of those situations we brought before the landowner before executing any of those plans. So a landowner agreement doesn't mean that our organization just gets the right to go build things in the woods wherever we want. There's still a lot of elements that are in play for what we have to do and to follow our landowner agreement. The 10 years, that generally is asked for in the state. That regulation comes through with VMBA, primarily because that's the agreement terms that are looked for when you go for some federal. And so they look for that 10-year agreement. But as we found, all of these is generally the agreement says 10 years, but there's always some clause in there that states, like, in the event that it needs to be pulled back, that the land is still in ownership of the landowner, and that those things could be revoked for any reason. And we have made exceptions for that in terms of like Mount Snow and Vail Resorts and some of their property that we help work with the trails in there. So just to give you guys a little understanding.
And then the last thing that I forgot to mention, and one other benefit of working with us, it is fun. You know, we certainly would like the opportunity, if we had a great idea, we could work to and come to you for some possible funding. However, we do have a lot of areas of funding. You know, our membership paid dues, we have a little bit over 300 members at this point. There are grants that we can get that are separate than ones that you can go after. We could go after grants, different ones, you know, at the same time.
From the MBA, from CTA,
and also, you know, we also do have a bit of interest now with private donations, corporate donations. We're really trying to build that out because, you know, we're not for profit, so it's an important part of our whole you know, mission.
I was gonna say, who wants to speak now?
So from an economic development standpoint, thank you guys for coming and talking to us about that, and I appreciate you bringing the points to us. You know, from an economic development standpoint, I guess my biggest concerns are, you know, number one is just that, you know, the ownership piece of the property, right? And just that those roles are clearly defined as, you know, this is the town's property. You know, on one occasion, there was a misunderstanding and it was like, well, we have this agreement, and what I would want to see is that the agreement was, you know, very clear as to what that meant. And even the way you just described it makes sense to me. I would just want to make sure that that was clear. I know that when those agreements came back to us again, the board requested that we put them in front of legal. It was legal's advice, like, hey, the way this is written, do not sign it. So whatever if we did get to that point where, you know, landowner agreements would be looked at, we would definitely have to do some work on the verbiage there to make sure that our legal was comfortable with us signing something like that. The other really big piece for me is the funding piece, right? And we've talked about this before, like, and I talked about it just recently at the Trails Committee meeting, and we've talked about it, you know, probably till I'm blue in the face about it, but my department, as every other department in the town, is held to a standard as to how we spend money and how we make the decision on how to spend money, right? So, you know, up to $5,000, it's a verbal quote from a couple of people. Over 5,000 to 10,000 is a written quote that can be, I believe, decided on, but recommended to the select board by a department head, and anything over $10,000, you know, to send it out to bid, and that will be voted on by the select board. So we're held to that same standard that every other department is, even though our 1% funds are actually kept separately from the general fund. So my concern would be, you know, just when it came to these projects, that there was an understanding that, you know, those dollar amounts mean something. We can't just promise, you know, money for projects or any of those things to one specific group when we're being held. Those are my biggest concerns, I think. You know, and just really making sure that as we move forward with these things, that we have clarification of how these, like our department and your organization and Hoot Toot and Whistle and, you know, any other organization, you know, the Stump Jumpers or any other organization here in town, how we all work together in the same direction instead of, you know, kind of bouncing off of each other and removing the territorial piece of all of this that's been going on. Those are my concerns that I think I would want to see addressed.
Yeah.
I think what is unique and important to acknowledge, Eric, from your perspective for economic development, is the town of Dover wants to take action on trails in a way that a lot of other towns don't in the state of Vermont. When Nick Bennett kind of joined us for this meeting, he was a little bit surprised that the town was looking to own and kind of go through that whole process to execute building the trail. A lot of the partnerships that work in other towns, as well as town lands or town-owned lands, they'll generally partner with an organization that goes through the required legal RFP process for the town's requirements for what their purchasing requests are, and just work with them to have the trails organization execute it. But we're more than happy to see the town complete those projects and do all that as well. What we're really looking for in the partnership, and same thing, Eric, is to make sure that the communication is clear. You know, early on, we signed on dual agreements on some of the jurisdictional opinions and some applications which had both of our names. Which both of us now are obliged to making sure that we execute on what that permit is asking to be withheld. I think to certain parts, we probably didn't have the amount of knowledge that we needed if we could do it independently or if we really needed to be together. And then there's probably a better way to do that, or at least to be communicated in the future. I think from the perspective that you guys have stated for Forest Hill, that the town of Dover certainly wants to do the RFP for that project. We totally agree. We will happily be a part of the Trails Committee for that project and be able to put our input into those trail builders. We acknowledge that there's a benefit if we can try to make some connections with maybe multiple projects being in town. So there's a good partnership with that trail builder. But this one's very unique in the disc golf as well. So really, I think coming back to what we asked for in our partnership is just to be a partner, to have landowner agreements, we'd like to see the town partner with us to let us do volunteer maintenance and to continue to advocate for and maintain the trails. That's a cost savings to the town. There's also additional insurance for the town in the event somebody gets hurt during a volunteer day. That's on VIMBA or CPA's insurance for that project, not the town's. So there's some additional benefits there for sure. And that's kind of, I think, what we'd like to see and to start for us moving forward in a positive direction.
Eric?
Yeah, so just to be clear, I mean, everything that I put into the RFPs that I plan on putting out fits exactly to what was submitted to Act 250, so I'm not going above and beyond. You know, it states exactly what was discussed between myself and Steve and to a lesser extent Jeremy about what that all involved, so that when you know, we got done with our conversations and Steve did put the words to paper, it matched exactly what we had all discussed. And that these RFPs that are getting ready to go out, including the maps that, you know, Steve put on the paper that him and I and Jeremy worked on to build. Those, like, everything is exactly to spec as to what was sent to Act 250. Okay, so I don't want you to think that, you know, because your guy's name is on this, that we think we kind of go willy-nilly. I mean, we want to stick to what it is that went through there. You know, we appreciate being able to move forward with the work that was already done, because we don't want to have to take the same exact thing, sans SOVTA's name on it, and try to do the same. I mean, Act 250, like, what are you guys doing? We already approved it. You know what I mean? So it's a silly step to take. You know, and I think just with that partnership, you know, just again, that understanding that, like, these are our properties, and I know that there's been, you know, not specific to the organization or our town or anybody, but there's been plenty of disagreements about what should happen with specific properties, right? Like, oh, I don't think that should happen there, but we literally have a roadmap telling us exactly what needs to happen, and that's where these things are coming from. So I think that partnership is guided by that roadmap, and just that understanding that these are properties owned by the town, and that, you know, your role in the partnership is to help us and to guide that, not to, you know, not to have again, that territorial piece that I think has held back a lot of projects. Again, not specific to you guys, but the territorial piece that has held back a lot.
And Eric, I think it's important that, you know, we've had some good conversations offline, and, you know, you did have a predecessor, and there was things that might have become discombobulated. I think it's a fresh start here. So I'm personally not that, you know, interested. I think what we've shown, what we're talking about is above board, and what we're representing is how we would like to move forward. So, you know, personally, I think that's what we should be focused on. And completely understand your properties. You know, would you like a partner that's here to maintain them, to work on them, for no money? Right, that's what we do. And if you do, then, you know, we will, the only way we can proceed, and obviously it's gonna take some thought, is with those landowner agreements. And if that's not something the town, there's absolutely no hard feelings, and you know, then we wouldn't be able to be on those permits.
And all the work that we've done up to this date on Dovertown Forest and Forest Hill was authorized or approved by the select board or through the Conservation Commission for Dovertown Forest. And we anticipate continuing that same process and procedure. We don't anticipate doing anything without the permission of the select board for sure. We do have experience in the backcountry zones. We actually have a gentleman in our organization who has built some really good zones, and he is kind of an industry leader in our area for building those trails. The one thing that we haven't done, because we haven't really had a good positive meeting and agreement, we haven't done the maintenance on these backcountry zones at this time, both for Forest Hill and for Dovertown Forest. And we're getting to that time where we need to get in there and start doing that maintenance. But we haven't done anything yet because we haven't had the agreement, and we don't want to overstep in any of those bounds.
Well, I really like the positive, cooperative, everybody wants the same thing. They want trails, they want to be able to use the outdoors, and we all want to get to the same end game. Should we look at a landowner agreement that makes sense for maintenance for this fall? That our attorney will sign, will sign off on, so Eric, I'm looking at you asking.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm happy to put those back in front of legal, and just basically, we kind of got a blunt answer, like, hey, don't sign that. They didn't really get into detail as to what it was that concerned them, so I think, you know,
Even back to us for sure.
yeah, you know, so I'd be happy to put those in front of them again and say, you know, what is, how do we?
Okay, Joe.
Thank you, Vicky. So in order for you to have your name on and be in the greenways, you kind of need this signed agreement. Okay, so I guess we need to let legal know what they just explained to us. And then let us know what the positive or negative is to this going forward from their whichever. So that's my concern, why they just said no, but it makes sense what they're saying, so.
It's for the insurance too, which is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, but-
And I want to be forthright. Our organization has access on the Greenway Council through BNBA. That doesn't preclude Dover from sending somebody as a representative and sitting on the Greenway's Council as an obligation to doing the Rule 71 for Act 250. But we're already here and they're already sitting there, and generally that saves you from having to be a part of that organization. It saves time. So yeah, I want to make sure that's clear. It's not the only.
So you're saying is we could be on the Greenways.
You could be on the Greenway's Council, but I want to be forthright about that. It's not the only way, but it's the most efficient.
Eric,
So as far as the current RFPs that I have without, are you saying that without a signed landowner agreement, we can't move forward with the project as described, or what are we?
You could, and the key piece here would be that you have to be on the Greenways Council to hold the Rule 71 for Act 250. So the two options to continue the RFP that's stated would be to have somebody sit on the Greenways Council to be able to hold that jurisdictional opinion as it's approved for, or to partner with an organization through BMBA that has a seat on the Greenways Council. So there's two options there that totally exist for those to work as is.
Tom,
I'm sorry, and I think that's a very important piece we're talking about. There's two others as well. Okay, one is if it's benefit or not for us to be ensuring users, trail workers, maintenance. Is that a benefit? And then the third is, we keep talking about these backcountry zones, unless you've been back there, and it just sounds like a little bit of mumbo jumbo. But who would, in the absence, legitimately maintain those now that it is the reason the park will understand it. I mean, that is the main attraction. That's what bringing it understand. It's
This is all new to me, what you just brought to us about the whole permitting process. I assume that you're correct in bringing it to us. I'm not 100% sure, so we have to obviously look into it ourselves. We do want to move forward with our RFP. So either way, we either sign an agreement with you or we figure out the greenways.
When the
It's
third
not like
option
we're gonna-
is to go to Act 250. That would be, the third option would be to do an Act 250 permit, and that would no longer need for having the Rule 71 clarification in the JO. But then you get into Act 250.
that's probably the least desirable of all the options I can possibly think of.
That's why we've done that, yes.
Yes. So do we need to think on this more, Eric?
Yeah, can you guys, sorry, can I speak?
No, yeah, I'm asking you.
Okay, can you guys send me the landowner agreements again so I can get them back in front of legal? Because I would like to explore that path, and then, I as I stated, I have no problem moving forward in that partnership. It's just that, I want to make sure that both parties are comfortable with the landowner agreement, and that that's not used in a way that's, not beneficial to like getting projects done. You know what I mean? And standing in the way of each other, because that's not the point of any of this. My goal is to put shovels in the ground and make these things happen, because as of right now, when people say, we bought this land and you're not doing anything with it, and that to me is super frustrating. Like, it took us long enough to figure out what we were gonna do there. And now that we finally got over that hump, I want to do. So let's get this thing moving. If you guys can send me those agreements, I'll get them back in front of legal. We will probably forego the B item of the agenda to review the RFPs this evening. And
Scott, did you have something to say?
No, it's, there's 5,600 volunteer hours that they put in there, and if you haven't been back there and seen it, I just think it's very impressive. It's great stuff. It's a lot of volunteer hours, so I know just as a Dover resident, I appreciate that. So.
But we also have to be able to have a landowner agreement that protects both sides. And so that's key. And so that's not something we haven't really been continuing down that path, and it sounds like we need to bring it back to the forefront. So, okay. Joe.
I am understanding of all this, but that doesn't preclude us that you can go through with the RFP, just so we're all on the same page. tonight, just so in case somebody has any questions there. There's not gonna be a question at the next meeting, and that's gonna be another 2 weeks. So I think we should go through the RFP. As stated, we have the other party here in case they have some concerns. So that next week, when we figure out the greenways and the signed agreements, because who knows how long it's gonna take with lawyers. But at least that is vented and taken care of, and then we can move forward. I do know it's late, but I just wanna get something to happen.
I would support that same notion is to
So-
submit the RFP as it is, with the agreement of. We know that there's gonna be a partnership, we know that the town, real as a resident, we know that the town's gonna do what it needs to do to make sure that it's following those obligations. The only piece that we just want the select board to be aware of is those backcountry zones as far as the landowner agreement goes. That if the landowner agreement doesn't exist, then our organization can insure and put our name on those zones. And that's something to consider for the backcountry elements of Forest Hill and then the Dover Town Forest. And just those agreements, so it's something else to have that consideration for.
Yeah, I mean, the sooner the better on the agreement, so I can get crack on. I'd love to have it back in 2 weeks, so we can just get this taken care of, because again, I want to get some shovels in the ground, and make this stuff happen, it's driving me.
Eric, we'll have them in tomorrow morning, and if your attorney has one, I mean, they're very boilerplate, there's nothing to them, and anything can be added. Clauses of, I mean, that they can be changed, it just has to have a certain premise. I mean, I'm a little bit surprised at your attorney, just because they're so common in the state, but that's fine, and if he had one he'd rather use, I'm sure them than CTA, as I said, there's some boilerplate.
It was a vagueness in the language that he felt, I think, was not protecting us to the level. that he
Write it
wanted
up,
us to.
get it back.
So we'll be less vague.
The other thing too is if there's any reference that he can call someone at another town. So that he could look at, so that he understands that this is not the first go around would be very, very helpful from your organization, Bemba. Whatever towns they have, so he can look at, that's gonna make him much more comfortable to be able to advise us correctly going forward.
So I could ask, we could ask the town of Stratton Select Board or their attorney, who's the two resident of Dover, Mr. Fisher.
Wilmington.
Sure.
Okay.
So the two of them can communicate.
Sure. Happy to get that
It
done.
makes it quicker.
Sarah,
Are we good with this?
Yeah,
So are we gonna review the RFPs now?
yes.
Joe
Sorry.
says yes.
According to Joe.
Well, I just want.
So which one are we gonna look at
Let's
first?
start with trails.
Okay,
Most of the formatting of these RFPs was very similar, so once we figured out, the first piece of it. The rest is pretty easy. Starting with the organization overview, review of our primary users follows.
have you guys seen these?
I have not seen the document yet,
I can get you.
I trust Eric, I've seen his RFP.
Followed by a explanation of our current recreational offerings here in town. Followed by an explanation of the trails and recreation process for implementation. Followed by a project background as to the purchase of Forest Hill and how we got to where we are today. The piece that's different between the two RFPs is obviously the project requirements, so the following basically two pages explains what's outlined in that active or in the jurisdictional opinion as to what we've been approved for to do for trail work in Forest Hill in this first round that I kind of, as I'm referring to it, of work in Forest Hill. So basically everything that we put on that, jurisdictional opinion when we did the Borat grant is what's listed under the project requirements here in this RFP. There is some verbiage basically stating how we came to the price of the approximate price for the project. And if that may need to be, lowered or raised based on the recommendation of whoever's bidding on the project. We would be addressing that at the board when we got to that point. Then a timeline and how to contact myself for site visits on the property for the project. Following that is the blank map of Forest Hill. Property that we own there. I believe Steve had outlined, Steve had outlined the wetland on the property there. And I believe the backcountry zones on this map as well. This is the map without any of the stuff on it. Conceptual map. So then this is the map that was submitted with the Borat grant. Worked on by myself and obviously favored by Steve. So myself, Steve and Jeremy. To take all of those ideas from all of the different user groups, the hiking trails, the disc golf and the mountain bike. To kind of come up with, and the stump jumpers coming down the north side of the property, to come up with a general idea of how all of these things fit together. And that was based on a site visit I made in Massachusetts to a property doing all of the same things on a similar piece of property. So what you see there is, it's stated in the RFP that this is obviously a conceptual map and that things are not set in stone. It's just to give the designers and builders a general idea of how all these things would fit together and where they come from. Following the maps is the jurisdictional opinion, again, put on paper by Steve, worked on by all of us to describe what it is that would be happening in the project. The trail surfaces, things like that. That got us, the property card that got us into the jurisdictional opinion process with Act 250. And following that, the response from Rick Overkirk, who's our local permit specialist, basically stated, well, not basically, but stating that everything here would not require a permit. All they're requesting is that we do reach out to wetlands when we do start to design so that they can come in and confirm that we are not disturbing any natural wetlands on the property. So that is the entirety, and obviously very paraphrased, SparkNotes version of our trails RFP. Any questions on that one?
We see one builder or two builders.
So that is the second RFP for the disc golf. Unless we find a company that specializes in how they can call it. Yeah, so we don't, well, they both be launched at the same time to the same places. So if there was somebody who was able to do that, it does state in this RFP that whoever decides to take on this project will be working directly with a builder of the opposite throughout the process. Okay. There's a lot of words in there. I don't get you. I saw it.
Disc golf just
It's the same thing.
is the same thing with the disc golf,
17
with the
holes.
tees and the holes and the
Fairways,
yeah, so.
signs.
So, does everybody, anybody have any questions or about these?
Yep, I've already looked.
Okay.
Sure, I'll get you guys some.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
I guess one silly question. On the disc golf RFP, you're talking about primary users include current potential residents and visitors. Do we need to mention, or should we even be talking about the possibility of it becoming a facility that could be held in these tournaments? Or does that matter?
I mean, I can absolutely add that to the RFP.
Because
and
I'm just
that's
there's certain
more
build standards that need to be in there if we want to be
yes and no.
available to that.
I mean. I can add the wording in there, like realistically, that's just, that verbiage is more for this board to understand what it is that we're focused on. I can absolutely add the verbiage. To anybody who's.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah brought up a good point. I mean, if we're gonna build a disc golf, we should be able to build a disc golf that. There are disc golf tournaments out there.
Right.
And if we can build it a certain way, that's not that much out of the ordinary to make it a tournament ready.
Right.
Venue.
Tournament quality?
Tournament quality. Yeah.
Tournament quality, it can bring as an event, because that's what we do.
And the preliminary design and layout, this conceptual design that we worked on, that is of a standard that could support.
Jeremy helped you with that as well.
Jeremy was working hand in hand. I know him and Steve are on the phone are crazy.
It is a consideration that this disc golf course is 9 holes in a reverse direction, from my understanding of the map.
Yeah, so
So I think something to acknowledge is that this is definitely primarily a recreational course.
Yeah.
The opportunity for a tournament would be great, and maybe with those locals, but I think the realistic chance of getting your really big, national championship style tournament, this isn't the property for that. But you know what, maybe
Maybe we could do
The
something
stars.
Vermont, who knows,
who knows?
Wyndham County, I don't know, whatever. you know, to get 50 more people here, you know,
Yeah,
these
absolutely.
tournaments are huge, I know that, so.
And based on the map, I mean, there are 17 holes that do span the property, so it's, and then the 18th hole being on Richard Kaplan's property. So I understand that it's not, you know, conducive to probably national tournaments and things of that nature, but you know, local tournaments and things like that. So, yeah, with the current design, especially once we have professional men telling us that all expense again. So I will add that verbiage absolutely, Sarah, to include the potential or something. like that.
Well, I approve it as,
So,
we can vote on it so that we can, if we can get our attorneys in the Greenway, so we're not in conflict of 71 whatever thing.
all we have to say is basically, well, we're gonna allow Eric to move forward with both of these RFPs.
Once we finalize a land agreement or see on agreements. That's correct.
Correct.
I think you could move forward with that.
I was thinking that too.
All right,
Why do
I
we-
move to move forward on it. Anyone
You-
second
you-
that?
you mean-
We were just looking for quotes. That's all we're doing at this point.
Anything else?
Okay, so we're authorizing Eric to release the RFPs.
Make something. happen.
Second,
Second.
for Horace Hill, both.
Both, even better.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Send
there we
them.
go.
Thank you.
You happy, Joe?
Yeah.
All right, let's move to the Hathaway Trail recommendation. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We're
Thank you
clear
for all your work.
on-
The whole front row is gone.
Okay, Hathaway Trail recommendation, so plenty of discussion during the Trails Committee meetings to talk about a potential closure, seasonal closure of Hathaway Trail to wheeled vehicles. That happens by putting gates at 8 different points along the legal town trail section, Hathaway Trail. The recommendation from the Trails Committee is that we purchase those gates. Okay, I feel like the horse or the cart might be a bit in front of the horse here. The reason for that was that the stump jumpers wanted to try to get those gates put in while they were out doing the work on Hathaway Trail. However, in order to make closures on this legal town trail, the input from the LCP is that there's a process involved where first the select board makes an ordinance
Yep.
allowing you guys to close a legal town trail in town. And that would be, that ordinance would actually encompass all legal town trails in town. Give you the ability to close them
Mhm.
at your discretion.
Mhm.
Once that ordinance gets through, I understand that's a lengthy process.
Mhm.
Once that's through and approved, then we create a specific policy to Hathaway Trail, saying that we have the right to implement these 8 gates. And that they are open and closed at the discretion of the select board or a nominated person, most likely our highway
Mhm.
commissioner.
Yes.
So the recommendation of the Trails Committee is that we start moving this forward to
Get
be
the order.
able to close Hathaway Trail. The reason for this is the continued wheeled use on the property at inappropriate times of the year that cause these massive mud holes that we eventually end up paying $10,000 a pop to repair. We don't want to continue to do that on a basically bi-yearly basis, so we think that the answer is potentially to solve this by a seasonal closure, in addition to, you know, possibly large weather event closures, to ensure that we're not just continually making mud holes along Hathaway.
So this is strictly for motorized wheeled vehicles in specific times of what?
Correct, based on the policy. that-
So we'll have to try to get a model policy,
Okay,
and get it going, because this does take a
Take a
long
long
time, because there's a lot,
time.
we adopt, we warn it, we adopt it, then there's an appeal period, and it's a long time.
so I guess what I would be asking for now then is a blessing from you guys to move forward with the process so that we can get this started.
And then you're not gonna get a blessing, but.
Well,
I think we
well-
can do it.
Authorization.
Well, we're gonna have to pass an ordinance, so get the ordinance to us and we'll
Okay.
go, yes,
And do.
yes.
Thank you. The last thing I have is our Dover Technical Assistance Program applications. There were 3 of them.
Mhm.
They fit what was written in the program.
to my understanding of the program, and I am in support of them.
And there's a new business coming in.
There is a new business coming into town, and it's incentives like this that, help to drive that. Did have a conversation with Scott the other day, and a good idea came out of it when he asked, whether or not one of them was utilizing a local contractor, and they're not. But I also said that we didn't necessarily provide our business owners with a list of people who might be able to help them with these services. So I think prior to launching of the program next year, in addition to sending out the application, we may send them a list to say, if you're looking at a web development project, here's a list of local purveyors who may be able to help you. Not, saying they have to use them, but guiding them to a local purveyor to try to keep those dollars as locally as possible.
I only have one thought, and when these new programs start going, you start, so one of the applicants has multiple locations. So I don't, in the not for this particular one, but it's something I didn't even think about. We don't want to drive like mail order business to an alternate location by we're developing the online catalog with a local branch, but it ends up turning out that their head branch gets the 1% money for all the transactions, because it's all happening out of that hub. So if we were going to do, like, if the Vermont Country Store had a satellite here and they wanted us to set up something for their corporate, which ended up being used by the corporate, not that they would have said that, but we have to be careful about that too, that we don't want to build things that take things away from here,
Absolutely.
And I don't know how to say it any better, but I was just like, oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah, so that's something Scott brought up to me as well. It's something I'm happy to put into the verbiage for next year. We'll put this application back in front of you guys before it goes back out, so as we do with all of our applications, so you can review. The only reason that I'm okay, I understand that it's a particular issue with this business. The only reason I'm okay with saying that is the value of the entire project, when split by all of their locations, is still quite a lot of money, specifically to the Dover location.
Yeah, and they were confused because they thought they were going to get staffing money or something.
So the reason we had them remove that. But the reason we had them remove that is because you're only allowed to apply for one type of assistance in a calendar year, or every other calendar year. And you can only apply for that one time. So if they did staffing, they could not do staffing again. If they did web, they can't do web again. So we said, well, your web project is more than enough to cover what it would take to get a max grant. So why don't we remove the staffing piece, and you can potentially look at that down the road.
Joe.
So does our little Dover logo move around in this whole process? Like all the other advertising, they gotta use that little logo in any of the stuff that they're doing with it?
It's not a piece of.
Doesn't mean it can't be in the future.
Yeah, it absolutely can be in the future, so we can figure out. How to
Hey,
incorporate that.
we got a brand.
Yeah.
No, but see, this is what you do. These things have the first year, you learn all the little, I know that both Do It and DAS had a lot of growing pains. I remember working through a lot of we didn't expect that was gonna happen with it. So that's fine.
I'm happy with the turnout for the first year. I think, the fact that there was people calling and asking questions about it who didn't ultimately submit an application. So I think there will be future interest in the program. And honestly, it's not a huge spend to try to get some things fixed around the valley. So I'm happy with the way the first year went, and we can make those adjustments for next year.
Do you need to approve any of that?
Yeah, we do. So we need to approve the 3 applications for the DTAP. No, we can do them all together.
So I make a motion that we approve the DTAP applications from Colorado Ski Shop, Deep Sport, and Haystack Home Services.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We need to move on to the consent agenda. We need to approve the minutes, all 9 pages of them from September 6th.
Motion to approve the minutes of September 6th.
Any changes or corrections? All in favor? Thank you. That was a lot of, I'm surprised you have any fingers left.
That was a heavy lift.
We need to approve.
Motion to approve the warrants of September 17th, 2022 for $258,225.72.
Any comments, questions?
No.
All in favor? FYI, site visit for Snow Lake Dam scoping study set for September 22nd at 10 a.m. Is anybody able to attend?
So when is that?
Travis's Day.
It's
22nd?
Thursday.
This
morning at
Thursday?
10.
Thursday, what am I doing Thursday?
I absolutely wanted to, but that is, we load the newspaper at noon, so
Well-
there is no way.
I'm gonna try to make it.
There's also a budget. Isn't it the VLCT? budget
All at the same
seminar?
time.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna do. that.
ELCP.
Well, it sounds like it's a busy time of
It's
day.
a rip roaring day.
All right, Joe, that'd be great if you can go. Brian, you going to that? All right, Travis is
So where-
going.
So where are we actually meeting? So is it open?
You're not getting.
Okay, moving on to more FYI. The planning commission meets September 26th at 6:30 PM. Open mic night, which we heard about from Linda, is the 28th at Dover Town Hall.
Fair.
Town fairs, the October 6th and 7th at Killington. Scott, Sarah, and Tabby have signed up to go. And the Trails and Rec Committee meets again October 11th at 6:30 PM. Does anybody have any liaison reports? Does anybody have any need for an executive session? Then I am happily adjourning this meeting at 8:26 PM.
See you, Brian.